Steak. Love steak. I can't eat a lot of red meat, but when I do, I want to make sure it's cooked well and I make enough portions that'll last me a couple days, maybe even pepper in some other meals in between. But this is going to be one of the most delicious meals we're fixing, so let's listen up. Let's do it. So what we got going on here, we have some top sirloin strips. This has some really great marbling in it. When you're choosing your meats, make sure you get that fat deposits in there. Your body uptakes protein better when it has a little bit of fat in there in between, and fat makes it taste great. It makes another layer in between that fatty meat. It's just gonna be so delicious. So as well, we're gonna be sauteing today some stuff. We're gonna be sauteing some broccoli, some zucchini, some asparagus, some bok choy. We put onions in there. Garlic, I'm gonna cheat today. You know, I've been cheating lately with this minced garlic. I think I love this. I used to mince my own garlic and I was like, those cheaters are using the minced garlic out of the jar. But I love this stuff. I think I'm gonna stick with it. And I guarantee if you use it, you're gonna love it too. So get one of these, throw it in your cabinet, throw it in the refrigerator, whatever you wanna do. We're gonna be sauteing on butter and our bacon, render bacon fat today. We cooked bacon. I don't remember when we cooked it, but we're gonna use this as part of our base for sauteing stuff today. So look, when you're cooking bacon, keep this. Put it aside, put it in a container, cover it, put it in a Tupperware container, cover it up, and use it for later. It's gonna be fantastic. We're always gonna add some nuts. It puts that extra fats. There's omega fats we never really need, and also it just tastes great. It's the crunchy on the sides when you're eating some steak and you're having your sauteed vegetables. Throw some nuts in there, crunch, crunch, crunch. Tastes so good. Some stuff you're gonna need today, always. Have some bowls. These big mixing bowls are gonna be so helpful for us today. We'll make sure that we have these. Some other just side bowls, some place to put our prep food on, a cutting board, salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, our trusty knives, and of course you wanna grab a spoon or a fork or something to have on the side. Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's gonna be perfect. So, as always, we start with what's gonna take the longest to cook. Now, I like my steaks on the rarer side. We might do medium rare today, but look, when you're cooking steaks, let's say you're cooking 4 steaks instead of 2 steaks, cook one the way you like it that evening and save the other 3 seared, almost like pre-cooked, if you will, so that when you go the next day to cook it or to reheat it, you don't have a medium steak and you put it in and you heat it up and now it's a well done steak. Start with a little bit less cooked than you like when you're doing a big prep meal, okay? We're gonna cook these the same today. I'm not gonna worry too much about it. I like mine on the rare side anyway, so if I do heat it the next day and it's a little bit more medium, I'm okay with that. That's totally fine. But we're gonna have such a great meal, so let's get started. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what's gonna take the longest? And sauteing vegetables generally can take the longest because we're gonna fill this saute pan full of vegetables and it's gonna cook all the way to the top. And, you know, cooking when you're at the base of something like a steak, you get lots of surface areas where the steak cooks fast. But when you fill up this container full of vegetables, you're gonna have to rely on the trapped heat inside of here to cook it. So it's gonna take a little bit longer. So that's gonna be the longest thing today. So let's just push this steak out of the way for a second. We'll start prepping that in a second. Now, when you're cooking vegetables, don't cook them all the same. Every vegetable is a little different. These are asparagus, right? These are a little bit stiffer. These are harder, right? And the same thing with broccoli. Broccoli is a stiff vegetable, right? So these are gonna require a little bit more cooking. Bok choy, on the other hand, bok choy is really, really wilty, right? So if you threw bok choy and broccoli and asparagus at the same time, by the time the asparagus and broccoli cooks, the bok choy is gonna be a mess. It's gonna fall apart and be gross. Same thing with our zucchini. Zucchini is a little bit more of an easy, soft vegetable, so we don't want to cook those at the same time as the asparagus. So if we look down the line here, we have a number of things we need to cook. We need to cook our asparagus and broccoli and our onions. See, onions are hard, right? It's almost like an apple. So we want to make sure we put our onions in there first. So we're going to do an onion and garlic to start out with. Then we're going to put our broccoli and asparagus in. While we're doing that, we're going to put our green beans and our zucchini. We're going to prep those on the side so that when we're adding things to the pan, we're allowing the harder stuff to cook first so our final product has an even consistency on cooking. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. Like, I'm going to throw it all in the same pan. Then your stuff starts to get wilty and everything's kind of gross. And some stuff's cooked, some stuff isn't cooked. What's going on? This is probably where your main problem is. So, as always, we're going to start our cooking. Let's go ahead and put a little bit of grease and butter inside of our pan and turn it on low. That way these fats can start just kind of breaking apart and becoming the base that we need. So we're gonna head over there right now. That's gonna start, before we start prepping anything else, let's just get it warm. Doesn't have to be hot. Okay, here we go. Grab my knife. So look, you might have a spoon and that's fantastic. Use a spoon if you want. But you know, it's funny, you don't really need to have all the fancy stuff when you're cooking. If you want to scoop out some butter and you think a spoon would be better, great, do that. But you can also just take your chef's knife, have the same tools that you're using, use your chef's knife to cut open that butter. All right, let's stick it in there. It looks like a lot of butter. We're gonna put so much vegetables in here. It's gonna make quick work of this. I'm gonna set this butter here for a second. Some of this bacon grease, same thing. You might want a spoon. Hey, that's totally fine. But look, the knife works well as well. It just picks up enough that you need. There we go. That's a nice start, right? Okay. So that's going to make a great start. We're going to keep the lid off for the time being. We are going to put the lid back on when we cook our vegetables. For the time being, we're going to turn this on low. We're going to put it about 3 or 4. This stuff's going to start to melt and make a nice pool in the pan that we're going to use to cook our vegetables with. Great. All right. Let's start chopping our vegetables. Now look, I got some butter and grease on my knife, all right? You don't need to go wash it. You're about to start cutting vegetables, let it ride. Let's cook as fast as we can, most efficiently, to make the biggest meal possible in the shortest amount of time. That's what maintains the body that you want. It's having these food prepped, big preps, really easy kind of stuff, linear cooking, okay? So again, these don't take a lot of time. These don't take a lot of time. These don't take a lot of time. But these are gonna be a little bit harder, okay? So, let's start out with a little bit of chop here. I'm gonna wipe this off actually and show you guys a little bit of this. When you're cooking, things are a lot easier to cut if your knife is sharp. All right, if it's dull, it can be hard. You can be hacking away at it. Everything's gonna smush. So make sure that you run your knife down the steel, okay? And make sure your thumb is away. This butt right here will stop a knife from going into your hand. So that's what it's for. But you know, as you get better and faster, you can really kind of get into a way that you're flicking your wrist and making that knife sharp. But you know, for starters, just don't do it like this. Make sure it's nice and flat against the edge of the steel. And you're gonna hone that edge of the blade. Very important when we're gonna cut stuff, especially the harder vegetables. All right, hey look, I need a chopping bowl. I'm gonna use this one as my chopping bowl. Broccoli. As always when we're cutting broccoli, we'll cut the butt off of the major butt here, and we're gonna scoop around the inside and pull that broccoli out and remove as much of the stem as we can. Holding the broccoli floret parts, when I release it, you see they kind of fall apart. That's when you know you're cutting broccoli well, when you're not having to chop everyone one by one. Again, we'll come inside, we'll scoop that piece out, and broccoli just falls apart. There we go. Same thing here. Chop that big one off. We'll come in, we'll scoop out that broccoli inside stem. Things fall apart. We'll scoop out this inside stem. Things fall apart. Excellent. Here we go. And my chopping board might get a little bit full, and that's fine. Look. That's what we got this big bowl for. All right, this is going to be our veggie bowl. We'll just start throwing these in here. Excellent. Boom. All right, let's get some more broccoli going. I love broccoli. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Broccoli has natural occurring boron, and boron is something that's used in androgen production. Androgens are pre-testosterones. So as men, we're going to need the women. You need testosterone too. Testosterone regulate your estrogen levels. Same thing with men, but vice versa. Estrogen levels are regulated by our testosterone. So we need both in our bodies. Don't shy away from stuff that makes testosterone in your body. Here we go. Now our next thing up, we're gonna cook asparagus and broccoli at the same time because they're both stiff, right? They're both hard. When you're cooking broccoli, the asparagus, I don't really like to use the ends here. All right, you're more than welcome to do it, but they're sinewy and they have a lot of fiber in them. They're hard to chew, so I actually like to get rid of those altogether. Seems like a bit of a waste, but that's all right. Everything else is fine like this. This is how your asparagus wants to be. This is perfect. So that's all there is to cutting asparagus, honestly. Now that we have it in here, let's mix it up a little bit. Let's give it a little bit of mix. Look how much deliciousness is going on here. Oh, so good. How's our butter doing? All right, not bad, not bad. Let's kick it up a notch. Let's turn it up a little bit because you know we're about to throw in our first round of stuff. So we've already kind of melted our butter and our bacon grease, and now we're gonna have our last thing. So first thing we're gonna put in the pan is gonna be the onions and garlic. Okay, even though we've chopped this, we're gonna come back to it. So we have our prep here, our more stiff vegetables to kind of prep inside. Let's do our onion really quick. Always cut the tops of your onions off. Okay, these tops of the onions are the part that really makes you cry. These have them, I'm not quite sure what it is in them, but these are the part that make you cry. So make sure you put these away, face down too. Don't face them at you. Face down away from you. On the side here, cut the first ring of your onion and just peel that layer away, all right? Just like that. We're not gonna have that layer. We're gonna put that aside. Look how clean that onion is. Beautiful onion. So, you know, there's lots of ways to do it. If you dice up your onion with this, the onions are going to cook faster, all right, than the rest of this. We want to make the onions a pretty big piece in here. So we're going to use big rings. So all I have to do is cut down the long ways of it, and we're going to make our rings out of it. See that? There we go. our last piece. Saw how I pulled my fingers out of the way when I cut this onion. All right, I was holding it like this, but I pulled them back so my knuckles were exposed. That way I'm not cutting my fingertips. So there we go. That's gonna be our onion. So we're just about ready. I can hear the pan start to sizzle. So what I wanna do is we wanna start throwing some of this minced garlic and onion in there just to give it a minute, just to start that process to get the onions and the garlic flavored together with the butter and the bacon grease. It's gonna be so good. Doesn't it sound good talking about it? Jeez. All right. Yeah, I turned it up a little bit, so I'm about medium heat right now. Here's gonna be my pan. Started looking really good. Don't worry if the butter and the bacon grease isn't melted all the way. It will be. I'm gonna get liberal with my garlic. Look at that. Just why not? Garlic is so delicious in food, so make sure you get lots of it in there. Just like that. You can already see the pan starting to bubble a little bit. That means we're getting nice and hot. That's gonna be the extent of our garlic right now. So we can put that to the side. Let's take our onion over there, and let's start putting it in the pan. That's what it looks like. So I'm gonna make sure that I get my rings as much as I can separated, and in the bottom of the pan. Now look, when things fall in at this point, it's okay. You know, you can reach back into this pan. It's not super hot yet. It won't burn you. So get your onions in there. Get the rings done, okay? And look, just kind of take your hand and put it and scoop it around in there. Get them in the butter. Get them in the grease. Get them in there like that. Look, it's not hot. It's not that hot. It's getting there, right? Don't stick your hand in there when it's blazing hot. But at this point, you're good. Now look how covered it is with bacon grease and butter and garlic. Everything's looking so good. Right now, we're gonna put a top on there because we want to trap some of that heat that's escaping. You can see it wafting off. So the last thing we want to do is let that heat escape. So that's what's gonna cook our food. So we just put that lid on. Give that a second. I'm gonna wash my hands. Have a trusty towel on, you guys. Look, I wear it like a sash. Every one of these videos you can see me with one of these rags over my shoulder. And that's because it is so useful when you're cooking to have it to grab hot elements or to wipe your hands off. So use that. Don't rely on the paper towel roll. Use a towel, even if it's your bath towel for first. Just use that. And then, you know, find yourself some kitchen towels, obviously. They're much better. All right, good. Now we have our garlic in the pan, we have our onion in the pan. Now we're gonna add a little seasoning to this, okay? Because when we put it in there, we wanna make sure it has seasoning. Everything we add, we're gonna put a little seasoning on it to make sure it gets a proper amount of seasoning. So we're gonna use onion and garlic powder. Even though we have onions and garlic in there, it's okay to put a little bit more. And again, I'm never gonna measure out the stuff. You know, that doesn't work. Tablespoon and teaspoon. How are you gonna get a teaspoon of stuff to cover your stuff? Just be as liberal with it as you want. Use it the way you want. And you can always add more later. Here we go. I keep my salt in a little container like this. That way I'm not gonna shake it. I can just pinch it. Really feel the pinch. You can feel the salt leaving, like that's good. Put this pinch back, you know? Now that we're here, and especially in this bowl, we can fling this around. We can get this mixed up in here real nice. Just like that. Yeah. See how good that is? That covers it nice. Maybe we need a little bit more. It looks like this bottom side didn't get it. So I'm gonna salt and pepper this bad one more time. Maybe a little bit more onion and garlic powder. Just such handy things to have in your kitchen. Make sure you have them all the time. Okay, that's good. This is gonna be what we put in first. Okay, obviously onions and garlic, but our first main contribution to cruciferous vegetables are gonna go in just a second. How are we doing over here? Not bad, not bad. Maybe we can kick the heat up a little bit. Let's turn it to 6.5, 7. You can see it's starting to get pretty warm. The heat, this escaping vapor right here is actually the water from like onions and garlic coming out, all right? Because actually oil doesn't evaporate, so you can see that this is starting to cook. So you know you're getting somewhere with it. Good. Let's go ahead and add this while we prep our other vegetables to try to give this a leg up. Remember, this is the harder stuff. These are softer stuff. This is harder, so we want to make sure that we get this in the pan first to give it a leg up. Just a couple minutes. Here we go. Nice. Now I recommend, of course, having a set of tongs. But you know what? If you're a spatula person, that's even better. That's fine too. Spatula help get you underneath everything when you do want to do it. When you want to flip it around, we're going to leave the onions on the bottom with the garlic. We're going to set that there for a second. Let's go back to our prep work. Always cover it up. Make sure you keep that heat trapped in there to cook your stuff. We're not going to worry about cleaning this bowl out. We're just fine the way it is. What we got next? So if you had to take a stab at which one of these is the softest, what would it be? This pretty good. Yeah, this one's not too bad. Or this though. So if we had to think about what's going next in our pan, I would say these things go next, and we'll do this last. So let's go ahead and prep these. Now zucchini is just like cucumbers in the way that you cut it. You want to make sure that you have a good grip on it. You want to make sure your fingers are pulled back, and your knuckles are exposed. That way, if your knife ever encounters your hand, they're encountering the knuckles at all times. All right, when we cut. Cut on the bias for zucchini. Now, it depends on what you're cooking it with, but if you do a thin cut of zucchini, okay, this is gonna cook faster than a cut like this would. Okay, so think about that when you're cutting your zucchini. Don't make it really thin. I wouldn't make it this thick either. I go somewhere in between. That way you get a nice even cut, or a nice even cook with the rest of the stuff you have in your pan. Now cutting your vegetables on the bias, meaning diagonally, ensures that it doesn't roll off on you onto the floor somewhere. It might still happen occasionally, but it definitely happens less when you cut them like that. So we'll throw them in that bowl. Same thing here, pull my fingers back. Knife in hand, always rock your knife in the same place and feed your vegetable into it. Never walk your knife across the cutting board, you'll end up with less fingers that way. So here we go. Cut on the bias like this. We don't need that bad boy. We're gonna start feeding our vegetable in. Just like that. Make sure our fingers are pulled back at the end so we don't get them cut. Good. And maybe you got a little bit left over. This is a neat little trick too. You can always hold it with one finger and cut horizontally and just cut right over that and pull that last little piece off if you want. Okay, great. Now, I don't know if you can hear that, but the vegetables are sauteing nicely. So when I get done with this last one, I might just go ahead and flip those around a little bit just to make sure they're cooking evenly. So, knife in the same place, fingers pulled back, we're feeding it in there, cutting on the bias, we're feeding it slowly. Chop it at your pace, okay? There's no problems. Take your time, cut the vegetables, this isn't a race. Here we go. Good. This is looking so good. Now look, when you're looking at your vegetables, you can't tell me that these don't look like these are gonna make you a superhero. Look at the stuff that you get to eat. This is gonna make your body so strong for so long. All right, let's go check on that stuff for sauteing, right? Yeah, she's starting to get all. I can hear her going. So at this point, I got my onions in the bottom, my garlic sauteing. I want to make sure I mix in that garlic and onion with the rest of the stuff to make sure it gets consistent. So we'll put our spatula in here in case you're spatula people. You can use your hand. Be all right. This isn't that hot yet. Use your hand as a guide. If you don't like that idea, you can always use a set of tongs, whatever gets this thing flipped over. All right, look, see the garlic starting to appear with the onions? We're gonna get that all over the rest of these vegetables really quick, okay? You don't have to mix it up too much. Again, a lot of the cooking's gonna be done while we close the lid. Make sure we get all that in there. Scoop that off. That's our garlic, that's our onion. Great. All right, we're just gonna give that a little while, just like that. Just fantastic. All right, let's do some green beans. Now, green beans, right? When you get green beans, sometimes you get them with the stem still on the bottom, okay? Sometimes you don't, sometimes you get lucky and you don't get them. We're gonna cut these in half to make sure we have biteable portions when we're eating our meal. That way we don't have something like this on the end of our fork, or chopsticks would be better. So just kind of start gathering these out of the bowl. Stem first at the end, okay? See, just get them all stem first until you get a nice bunch in your hand. Just like this. All right, once you get to about here, you can just snap these off. Everything else on here is just fine and edible. Just snap those off really quick and just set them aside. So kind of go through here and see which ones you know have a stem. You can grab them two at a time, however fast you can do them. Remember, you have time. We have our vegetables sauteing in the background, so there's no need to hurry. You can do one by one, you can do a bunch at a time. Just want to make sure you get that stem part off, because when you go to eat them and you leave the stem on, you'll remember it. You'll crunch down like, oh geez, they're stuck in your throat, you won't like it. All right, these are all looking pretty good. Yes, yes, okay. You know, green beans aren't a cruciferous vegetable, but they do have a lot of good stuff in there for you. And you always want to kind of vary the kind of foods that you're eating. You know, doing legumes or maybe root vegetables at certain times, especially, you know, eating seasonally. When root vegetables are in season, that's a great time to do it. And oddly enough, you know, the seasonal availability of root vegetables coincide with the winter, meaning that, you know, those starches are readily available for you to add fats onto your body, which is exactly how we were supposed to be. Same thing with fruits. You know, fruits are always available to us kind of at the end of autumn, when exactly right before winter starts. And we start eating fruits, and our ancestors at least, start eating fruit when it was available, and it adds fat to them. Animals still do this. I find deer all the time under apple trees during the season, and they're using that as a way to burn glucose and store their fat for the winter. Okay, now we're here. So what we need to do is just kind of chop these in half. Nothing fancy. We're just gonna make sure we have biteable parts. So let's just chop it right down the middle. There we go. We'll put those in the bowl as well. Same thing that we just did with the other vegetables. Let's get a little seasoning on this, okay? Little pepper. Little salt. Garlic. Onions. Good. Need a little trick, right? If you use your hand, just flip it around, watch it just kind of turn itself. You see how it covers everything nice and evenly? That's what we're looking for when we're cooking. Good, good, good. This is gonna be great. I hear that sizzling behind me. I'm gonna check on it really quick. Yup, that's looking great. Now you can tell that this thing is starting to cook because broccoli actually turns a little bit of a brighter green when it starts to cook. So this is in a great way. So this is exactly the point when you start adding our other vegetables, which looks like they're ready. So let's use them. Let's bring this over. Let's throw this in the pan now. Great. Now at this point, because the rest of the vegetables are nice and hot, we're gonna use those warm vegetables already cooking to start cooking some of the other vegetables. So let's turn this. Let's turn this and see if we can mix these together best we can. Use your handle over here. Make sure you keep a nice steady hold on it. Flip these things over. Use a spatula. Use whatever you got. Yeah. Oh boy. So look, our zucchini, our asparagus, our green beans, everything's starting to get mixed in here real nice. See, just like that. Everything's starting to get nice and warm. We're cooking. I think I'm gonna keep it on that exact heat. Now check this out. My hand's a little bit nasty, right? I just put my hand in a bunch of bacon grease, so it's a little bit nasty. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna wipe it off. I spilled some down here. Let's keep our kitchen clean. Let's go and clean that up while we're at it. That's the beauty of this towel. Now it goes right back over our shoulder to be used again. Kind of the small things, but it'll help you keep your kitchen clean. It'll help keep things consistent while you cook. Bok choy is next on the chopping block. Literally. Look, the end of this is getting kind of funky, and that's okay. The only time I've ever used bok choy ends was to make a vegetable broth. So there's no even need to keep it. Let's cut that off right down here. These are really great for broth, don't get me wrong, but we're not going to use that today. That kind of just goes into our bin. Bok choy is delicious. Now look, this part takes the longest to cook, okay? This will get a little bit wilty. So when you're putting it in the pan, sometimes you can divide these up. So let's look at dividing them. Let's start setting them, kind of nesting them inside like this. We can chop them right down the middle, just like this, and give them a little bit of a leg up when they start to cook. See, I kind of turn that big leaf into little small leaves like that. We'll set those in our prep bowl too. So let's stack these again. Let's nest them again. Just kind of the way they come. Not the big deal about it. We're gonna take our knife, get in there real slowly, cut down, right down the middle, peel them apart. There we go. You'll thank me later when you're eating this, because it'll be a lot easier to eat when they're cut like that. Okay. Now bok choy is not going to take a long time to cook. Again, this is like the softest of the vegetables that we're doing. So we're going to give that one more minute. We're going to start talking about steak and how we're going to prep this. These are some beautiful pieces of steak, n'est-ce pas? So I'm going to kind of separate them a little bit. This is the paper it came in. This is a great prep tool. So just kind of fold that paper back and keep it where it is and use that. We're going to do the same thing. Now the reason we're using the same kind of seasonings is because the food that you buy should have their own taste. All right, and the salt and pepper bring out the natural seasonings, natural flavors, excuse me, in the food that you're eating. So using this in this method is great. Putting paprika and cumin and all kinds of great stuff in there, that's totally fine. But the food that you have should taste good just by itself. You just want to bring out those natural flavors a little bit. When you're handling meat, you probably want to rinse your hands off just a little bit right before you touch your towel, just so you're not spreading around raw meat around your kitchen. I don't usually have a problem with it, but let's keep it nice and clean here. Let's do it like that. All right, salt. See, look how delicious that looks. Salt is the key. This is coarse kosher salt. It's my preferred kind of salt. I was doing pink Himalayan salt for a while. I think this has been a good switch for me. Let's do this here. You know, I don't think I've put garlic and onion powder, so let's do that. Let's put a little garlic and onion powder on our stuff. Great. Look how that looks. That's exactly where you want to be. I missed this with garlic and onion powder. Let's just flip it back over and do it really quick. No big deal. We got plenty of time. I can hear those vegetables simmering back there. There we go. So this is pretty much ready. We can just kind of sit on this for a second. This is prepped, ready to go. Next up is going to be our bok choy we're going to add to our saute mix. Let's check on that. Let's see how that's going. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Look how dark green these things are getting, right? Broccoli is starting to get the consistency that we want, all right? It's nice and soft, but it's still strong enough to hold its form. So that's great. Well, broccoli's getting there. Let's just flip it over a couple times here. See what we got going on. Look at how this garlic is starting to get on everything that we have. That's what we want. Every time we take a bite, we want a little bit of garlic, a little bit of onion, a little bit of butter and bacon grease. That's what we want. Good, good, good. Looking very good. Tastes good too. Great. I think that we can probably start adding some bok choy to this, and that'll be our final go. Now we didn't add much seasoning to bok choy, that's okay. But we start adding seasoning to it. This is a pretty dry leaf, so it's not going to stick very well. So let's just start putting our bok choy in. Again, this bok choy is going to start cooking pretty quick. It's a leafy vegetable. Look at that. Make sure you put the lid on there. We'll give those a couple seconds, and this bok choy is going to take a pretty quick wilt, and then everything will start fitting in the pan better. This will be just fine, just like it is. Now that we're at it, we can start doing some dishes. This is the key to keeping the kitchen clean and keeping a space that you can definitely use over and over again. So let's go ahead and let's just wipe our counter down right here. We'll throw these away in a second. Let's wipe our counter. All right, this will make sure that when we come back and we do anything in the space, it's clean, it's ready to go. And this is the key, right? You don't want to destroy your kitchen. You want to be able to come in and make this space someplace that you live and you work, and it's clean and ready to go at all times. So make sure your dishes are done, the dishwasher's empty, all your stuff's cleaned up. Just like that. Good, good. Keep all our dirty dishes over here. Let's do these real quick. Turn the water on, nice and low. I'm just gonna wipe our cutting block off real quick. Now look, when you do your knife, wipe it off. Don't set it up like this. Don't set it down in here, it'll bend the tip. Set it to the side, ready to go. Just kind of off the side there. That way you know where your knife is at all times. You're not scrambling around looking inside of your dish drain and poking yourself with it. Go. You don't need a ton of dishes when you're cooking stuff. You don't need to have 100 of these bowls. You can use the bowl, clean the bowl, use the bowl, clean the bowl. And if you're cooking something at the same time, you hardly need to clean the bowl. Probably because most of your stuff's gonna have the same seasonings on it, so you can use it over and over again during your cooking process, but always keep some extra bowls out. Good. All right, look, we're nice and clean. I did forget this. Forget the bowl we prepped in. Gotta clean that real quick. Now, why am I cleaning this stuff? It seems kind of boring. I think that a lot of the prep stuff that you see online just kind of shows you 3 hours of prep work in the front and it doesn't show any in the cleanup in the back, and that's not going to get you to where you need to be. When we're making this food, we want to make enough of it that it lasts days. It's great for us, and we know a method that we can clean our kitchen back up, so when we walk out of here, our food is ready for days on end, and we don't have a bunch of dishes. We have to come back in and we slave over doing the dishes again. Do them as we go. See how the process falls into place. So that's very important. That's why we're focusing so much on it. Let's see what we got going on over here. Nice. See, this is starting to get nice and wilty. It's nice and hot in here. All right, so our bok choy is doing well. So let's give these a couple flips too. All right, we're going to use some of the vegetables that's already cooking in our pan to ensure our bok choy gets started. Goodness, look at all these vegetables. Look how great this is going. Look, let these things fall out of the pan. It is all right. It's going to be just fine. Look at all this liquid we want to start cooking this bok choy. Let's get that mixed in there. Now, I make sure that when I'm cooking that my pan is just as full as it possibly can be. Just because, I don't have to do this every 5 minutes. I want to come in here, I want to cook a hearty meal, 20, 30 minutes, and I want it to last days. Because if you can prep a meal in 30 minutes, that lasts you 3 meals, then you have made 3 days worth of food in 30 minutes. That's 10 minutes a meal. You can't go to a fast food place like that. All right, see how we kind of flipped over all this stuff? Now look, I'm using my hand as a guide, all right? If I stuck my hand in the pan, of course I'm gonna burn myself, but just as a guide to kind of hold things down, it is just fine. You'll be just fine this way. You need to learn your way around the kitchen, the utensils. This looks like a funky piece, get rid of that. Okay, good. This needs just a couple more minutes, methinks. Now look, our lid's sitting on there right nice. Everything's good. We do have a bit of a mess here. Once again, we're gonna use our rag. We're just gonna clean up here. Just so we can have a pre-clean. Just so we come back things a little bit better than when we left it. Here we go. Drop a little bit, that's all right. Okay, we're almost there. I'm gonna cook my steak again, about medium rare. So letting this sit with a little bit of seasoning on there is perfect. Now this does have a nice fatty layer to it on the outside. A lot of the fatty meats require a little bit more cooking, so maybe this will go medium. I like my ribeyes medium, my fillets rare. So we'll see where we end up on this. But again, temperature is your choice, no worries. Whichever one you choose. All right, now we do gonna have some nuts on this, right? Always get our nuts ready. Again, nuts add that extra layer to your meal, a little bit of extra crunch. You always want to have that. And nuts are fantastic for you. So eat these with every meal. Be very satisfying. We'll come back to this in a second. Looking good. I'm going to kick this up a notch. And you know what else I'm going to do? Just because, I might add just a little more butter and bacon to this. Now, look, I've already used these tools. There's no need to reinvent it. Maybe I'm going to use the same thing. I'm going to scoop out a little more bacon grease. I'll sneak that in the side. This is going to be great later. Look, this bacon grease has a lot of fats that you need for your body. So don't be too liberal, or don't be too conservative with this. Use a lot of it. It'll be okay. It's exactly what your body needs. Stick it in there. Let it start to get melty. It's going to help us a little bit later. Let's turn those over one more time. Oh man, look how good that's looking. Tell me this isn't a ton of food. This is definitely enough vegetables to last for quite a while. There we go. Let's give that a couple more minutes. Maybe we'll grab an extra pan, saute this a little bit. This pan should fit, yes? Maybe not, a little bit small. We can wait on it. It's okay, let's give these vegetables just 5 more extra minutes. I'm not gonna wait to eat, never. So good. Oh yes. Now, how to tell if your vegetables are getting done? Broccoli's pretty easy. It turns a certain color. There's also a consistency. I think it needs more salt and pepper. Again, when you start with less salt and pepper, you can always add more. You can't undo it. Let's go ahead and salt and pepper these a little more. Excellent. Ooh, good. All right. Now you can tell your bok choy is starting to get done. See how wilty it's getting? Perfect. I think it's just about time when we start cooking some of this steak. Now, to keep things nice and easy, we're going to just dump this in the bowl we just used. Let's bring it back over here. So this is exactly where we want to be. This is perfectly cooked. Just want to sling those over into here. Any way you can to get them in there. Scoop them out as you want. That's totally fine. Look at that. Perfect. Now the thing about it is, while it's in the state, it's going to still be cooking. So it's okay to pull it off a little bit prematurely if you want. Always just take this, cover it up with the top. Keep that steam in there for the time being. Now, this pan, that's perfect for our steaks. No need to clean it. Let's go right into the steaks. Let's go. Again, bacon grease from earlier. Like that. Some butter, because it tastes good and has great fats that we need for our diet. Just like that. I see we have a little bit of garlic left over, maybe a couple greens stuck in there. That is okay. It's not going to do us any harm. I'm going to cook these steaks on about medium, if you will. Don't do too high. So the trick to steaks is, if you want to cook them thoroughly all the way through without having a crispy outer layer, you want to do about 5. That'll give you a nice, easy cook. If you want to sear the outside but not cook the inside a lot, then crank that up to like 7. If you want to be in the middle somewhere, that's perfect. That'll give you a nice out layer, but also cook the inside about medium. So you want about 6 heat. 6 heat for this stove. Just, a little bit above medium for wherever you are. Look at our pan sizzling. Look at that grease and that butter. Looking great. I think it's plenty hot enough to start cooking. So we'll grab our steaks. When you put them in there, you want to grab some of this butter and bacon grease right off the bat on both sides. So we're just going to take and we're going to flip it over. See how that kind of coats the top layer with it too? Because once you start cooking steak, it's going to start releasing water, and you're not going to have such concentrated grease and butter. And look, I'm picking these things up. It's a cold steak right now, so it's not burning my hands. And as always, let's trap some heat in here by covering this back up. Give us a couple minutes. It is going to be time to eat pretty soon once these steaks get cooked. Obviously, we can always just put this on our table just like it is and eat right out of it, or we can scoop it and put it on our portion plates, whatever you want. The point is, you can store it just like this if you like. If you got these mixing bowls and some plates, don't worry about putting it in the Tupperware. Just pop it in here like this. Throw it in your refrigerator once it cools down. Don't put it in there hot. Funny things happen when you put hot stuff inside a refrigerator. Just keep it until it cools down to room temperature, and then you can pop it in there. Sounds like our steaks are cooking nice. Certainly looks good. Good, we'll give that a couple more minutes. While I'm at it though, I'm just gonna go ahead and clean my kitchen up one more time. Just to make sure, clean my stove up as I go. You're not doing anything right now. Take the time to clean your kitchen up. You need to sweep your floor, now's the time. While your last bit of cooking's going on. Now, as we did before, we always cook the hardest stuff first, the one that takes the longest. Steak won't take that long, but the vegetables took a little bit longer to cook and prep. And we cook them and prep them in a linear fashion. So then when we're done, everything is cooked consistently We don't have a lot of muss and fuss. We're not cooking something and then waiting and cooking something and waiting. As soon as something came out of that pan, something else went in the pan, prepped and ready to go. And that's what we're gonna do, is we'll keep that linearity going, keep that cycle going. I'll take the time to put this up. Look, do everything you can while your food's cooking, all right? When you get done, you should be able to walk away from your kitchen and it'd be 100%. So let's go ahead and put stuff away. I need this bowl, we're done with that. Excellent. Look how clean we are. Look, our area is already ready to go. Sounds like our steak's cooking pretty good. I can hear it. Yes. Rock that pan back and forth, get that butter going on both sides. Great. Flip this. Hello. Oh, looks so good. Here we go. We're getting somewhere now. Look how clean our area is. We got to do a couple of these. We'll clean this up. We're done. Other than that, we're prepped and ready to go. We can always spend the time now to do some other prep work throughout the week. Maybe we'll start getting our containers ready. Maybe we want to start taking this with us or prepping the smaller vehicles. That's totally fine to do. Use the time in your kitchen wisely. That way when you're done, you're just done. All right? Don't come back in and clean up. Have everything prepped and ready to go. Now at the beginning, if you're doing lots of meat, if you're doing like 4 pieces of meat and you're not gonna eat it all at once, that's great. So we're gonna start to pull this meat out at intervals. So we have the pieces that we wanna eat now, cooking away a little bit more than we're gonna cook the other ones. That way when we reheat our food, we're not zapping it into oblivion and making it taste bad. Every time you cook your food, it feel like it came right off of the pan. So to do that, we're gonna want some of it to be rare and some of it to be a little bit more cooked. So let's see what it looks like. So let's pull one of these pieces off. You know, it hasn't been on very long. I'd say it's been on maybe 2 minutes on each side. Not a big deal, medium heat, 2 minutes on each side. So let's pull one off. We'll pull this small one off. Eat the big one. All right, let's just keep this one on sizzling for a little while. Let's see what this looks like. So this is gonna be our, let's just put it to the side for later kind of meat. So, you know, it's seared pretty well on both sides. You can see it's starting to kind of get a little bit brown. That's great. But the inside of it is still plenty red. Okay? Like that. See? So that when you go to cook later, when you go to reheat this in the pan, by the way, don't microwave meat. Don't microwave meat or eggs, even if it's scrambled eggs. See if you can't do it inside of a pan. Heat your pan up, throw a little bit of butter, a little bit of bacon grease, whatever you want. Throw a little more garlic in there, and just put this in for a couple more minutes. It's gonna heat up perfectly. This is actually the way I like my steak. You can feel it. It feels like it's warm on the inside, but cooked on the outside. It didn't take long to do. It's delicious too. That's a really good cut of steak. This back end has a really good fatty layer. But maybe you want it a little more cooked. That's your prerogative, I understand. This is where I'm at. So, I like to cut my meat before I put it on the plate. Presentation is beautiful. But you don't have to. Look, when you're eating steak, when you're eating meat, you don't need this whole thing. You don't need to eat this whole steak. Even if you're trying to gain muscle, you need to have a lot of fats in your diet, not so much steak. So when you're eating stuff like that, make sure you eat sparingly. Always come back for more meat if you want, but don't fill your plate up with meat. That won't do you any good. Here's our vegetables. Let's get those on the plate. See how they're still hot? They were still cooking the whole time in this bowl, even though it wasn't on the stove. Steak's so good. Just keep it covered, you're good. Here's our steak. I did a little bit of pre-cut. This is about the amount that I want. This is about the temperature that I want too. I thought it was gonna be a little more rare, but it turns out to be low. It's a beautiful color, right? There we go. You know what? That is one beautiful meal right there. I might throw an avocado in the mix eventually, just depending on how full I am. But these nuts that have plenty of fat in them, there's lots and lots of bacon, grease, and butter on this. There's lots of bacon and grease and butter on this as well. Just fantastic. I think our other piece of meat is probably gonna come off pretty soon. This one's cooked pretty well. So let's get the other one off real quick. Open your lid away from you, by the way, when you're opening stuff. Don't let that steam fall in your face. You don't want to hit you like that. All right, that was good. Let's clean this pan up real quick. Look, while it's hot, first of all, be careful with your bacon grease. If you need to, get yourself a smaller bowl. And let's put this grease on the side. Let's let it congeal a little bit. If you put water on top of a hot, greasy pan, it can smoke and it can burn you. So make sure you don't do that. And then put a little bit of water in your pan. Look at it heat up. This will save you from having to clean it so hard later. Just like that. See how it takes out most of that bottom part? It's already a lot cleaner than it was when we brought it over here. And before I even start eating my meal, I'm gonna put a little bit of water on that base. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and just clean this pan out real quick. It's hot, right? Use the scouring side. While it's hot, it's much easier to remove this stuff. Don't let it sit overnight. It's just gonna be incredibly hard to clean later. Not to mention, we don't want to be cleaning later. We walk out of the kitchen, we want to be done. So clean your dishes, whatever ones you're using, clean them now. Clean this lid. Just like that. Look. This isn't totally clean, right? There's some stuff in there. This is fine. This pan would be great later. As a matter of fact, I recommend not even cleaning your pan out. I wouldn't even have done it, but I want to make sure you guys see it. Make sure you see me cleaning up after myself, because that's the important part. Okay, we've done it. There's our final meal. Look how delicious this is. The vegetables that you cooked and the steak that you fixed and all the stuff is going to be good for days. This is about the portion you need for steak, which means that you have 4 meals sitting here at least. Lots of nuts and vegetables. This is going to last you. Took you 30 minutes in the kitchen. Everything's cleaned up. You've done yourself 2 days of cooking, 30 minutes. This is the way to do it. Hope you guys enjoy this food. It's fucking delicious. Enjoy.